Right, so we're recording. I'm just going to very quickly share screen. Just move that on there. Great, fantastic. So welcome to Meet the Employers. So for a lot of you, this will probably look very familiar based on the series of events that we ran last year, with a couple changes. So for those of you who participated last year, you can just bear with the newbies this year, and we'll kind of fly through everything while everything looks familiar. So the screen that you're looking at right now is pretty much the screen that you will see before you enter the actual main event. So just for context, it is very much an overview of what to expect for Meet the Employers, the date that we're running the event. You can see for most of you, depending on where you're based, that this is how long we have before the event kick off. A very quick overview of what to expect. And then most importantly, a calendar overview of the 5 days that we're running the event. So for a lot of you, some are participating in multiple days, some are participating in singular days, but for the most part, everything is here in the calendar. So what I've decided to do for today is, instead of logging in with my own personal credentials, I've just randomly chosen one of the participants' login details. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go in as Daniel. So Daniel, if you're online this morning, apologies, but I'm going to be you for the next hour. So I'm just going to log in as Daniel and just go in and show you what it all looks like. So just bear with me with 1 second, everything a little bit slower on Zoom. Fantastic, great. So now we're in the platform. For the most part, it probably looks very new to a lot of you, but in terms of functionality, it's very similar to Microsoft Teams, Zoom webinars, and the like. But essentially with AirMeet, which is the platform that we're using, you will land in what we call the reception area. And it's very similar to an in-person conference where you arrive at the reception area and it will give you an overview of what to expect for the day. So in this particular instance, because I'm logged in as Daniel for the day, it will initially tell me which speaking sessions or presentations that Daniel will be participating on the day. And it will give an overview of his presentation over here. You'll notice on the top right over here that there's a little bit of functionality around how to go in and customize the platform for your particular view. So you'll notice first and foremost over here, there will be a tab over here where you can click on Daniel's profile picture. And if you just click on my profile, it will give an overview of Daniel. And if you click on complete profile, you have the ability to customize your profile, add a little bit of a bio about yourself, a little bit of interests, and that's just for other attendees and other employers online, just to get a good sort of grapple, and also for students online to see who you are and what you're all about and your involvement at your organizations. The alerts button will pretty much be for the Grad Connection team to post alerts. That's very much a call to action from the team for us to navigate students to particular areas of the platform, whether it's presentations or to go along to your mock interviews. We will exclusively use that alert button to navigate and direct traffic of students throughout each day. For the messages tab is very much for you to go ahead and direct message anybody within the platform. So if there are other employers that you're familiar with online or other teammates, you can very much just click on direct messages and you can message each other within the platform. The same goes for people. You can see over here that Alex is online, so you can go ahead and you can type a direct message to Alex. Or in the case of Daniel, if I was myself hypothetically online, I could message Daniel online as well through the people tab too. For the feed is very much just for you to go ahead and utilize throughout the day. If you want to navigate students to your presentation, if you want to navigate students through to your employer booth or your mock interviews, feel free to use the feed as well. And then lastly, this little button over here for leadership. It's very much a passive way that we utilize in the platform to encourage students in terms of engagement. It allocates points based on the number of presentations that they go to, how they interact and engage with employers in their booths. So it's very much just a call to action. And what we will do is we will tally that up at the end of the Meet the Employers and just give them a small little prize on behalf of the Grad Connection team. Right, so jumping into the most important part, which most of you are probably eager to know what's going on. So on the top left-hand side of the screen, there's a little view schedule button over there. So if I just click on here, this is pretty much your calendar view and the days that you all participating for each day. So you'll notice straight from the 28th of February, which is next week, through to the 8th of March. Each day is a snippet of what to expect for each day. If you click into any one of these speaking presentations, it'll give you an overview of what the presentation is about and who the speaker is for that particular session. For Daniel's particular presentation, I'll just quickly scroll to the top. So for each speaker, you will only have exclusive access to your presentation. It goes without saying, we just don't want any surprises or people jumping into other presentations. It's never happened before, but never say never. But in this particular instance, you will see for Daniel specifically, he will only have a backstage button for his presentation only. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly click into Go Backstage and show you what that looks like. Right, so what it will do is it will open up to a back-end view over here, which essentially is just backstage. So very similar to giving a presentation in real life. You will wait backstage until your presentation goes live, and then essentially we will open the curtains and you can go ahead and do your presentation to all the attendees. Very similar to Zoom, very similar to Microsoft Teams. You'll notice that there are limited buttons here at the bottom. One is obviously for your camera, which I'm not going to turn on. One is for your mic, and the other one is to present to audience. So if you are doing a presentation from a PDF or a PowerPoint presentation, if you click on Present to Audience, you have two options. One will be to share your actual screen that you will be using for the event, and the other is to upload a PDF. Most presenters use the PDF. The reason being is because when you're sharing screen, you will not have visibility of yourself as well as your presentation. Whereas with the PDF, you'll be able to see yourself doing the presentation and going through the slides. It's a lot more of a seamless experience versus sharing your screen. But nevertheless, if you'd like to share your screen, you can go ahead and do that. One thing to note is when you arrive backstage, there will be a Grad Connection team member waiting backstage to just do some troubleshooting and make sure that you can go through your presentation, that your presentation is visible, that your mic and your camera are working. And if you're having any technical problems, we can solve that prior to your presentation. And then lastly, if you're using multiple cameras, so if like myself, I'm using external camera, like you can see on the screen, you can go ahead and configure that and change that accordingly. On the right-hand side, you'll notice that there are some interaction tabs over here as well. So one will be a general chat where some students may say hi. The other one is if there is any Q&A that they would like to ask the speaker, they can go ahead and pop that in there. How most employers facilitate the Q&A is that they will have more than one team member online anyway. So what some do is allow their speaker to go through the presentation and another team member will answer the questions through the Q&A directly themselves. You can leave the Q&A for after your presentation, that's fine. But some employers choose to do it both. So I thought I'd just mention that just to give you some ideas on how to navigate through that. And this will obviously tell you how many people are in session. If you would like to conduct a poll, you can do a poll as well, and we can set that up for you before you conduct your presentation so that you can just go ahead and play that poll during your speaking presentation as well. Right, and then moving on from this, I'm just going to click out of here. Leave that, and this will bring us back to the reception area over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this interview and Q&A button. And just give you an overview of what this looks like. So the interview and Q&A tab pretty much brings you through to an employer booth for every employer that's participating on each day. So what you're seeing right now is only the employers who are participating on the 28th of Feb. What the Grad Connection team will do is at the end of each day is that we will reset this to reflect the employers who are participating on the respective day. Very similar to an in-person event. If you were in a big hall and you're resetting each day, the same principle would apply over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click into a random booth. In this case, it's PwC. And essentially what it is, it's a direct resemblance of your Grad Connection employer profile, just with a quick video that you have on your Grad Connection profile, a little bit of content that's drawn from that. There is a available opportunities tab on the booth as well. So if I just click on that, what it will do is it will go straight to your Grad Connection employer profile on the Grad Connection site, where we have this very cool Meet the Employers bubble that's on your profile as well. And what that does is any students who haven't registered already can click on that I'm attending Meet the Employers, and they can go ahead and register for that. So what I'll do is I'll just scroll down just a little bit. So for the mock interviews, there will be 2 tables available to you where we have imposed a 15-minute limit. It's not a hard set limit, but essentially what it is to allow students to have a first come, first serve mock interview with employers on the booth. And what will happen is very similar to the presentation functionality that I showcased to you earlier. If I just click on this little table over here, what it will do is it'll bring up a window where the functionality is exactly the same. You can turn on your video, where essentially what it will do is should pop up any second. There we go. So it'll turn on your video. You can mute yourself. If you want to present, you can use the presentation as well. And then you can also go and configure your audio and video settings on this tab as well. There is a general info table. So if any students want to know a little bit more about PwC in this instance and a little bit more about the grad program or about the organization, you can jump onto the table. You'll notice that there's multiple chairs versus just one chair over here for students to do the mock interviews. But essentially the functionality is the same. If I just click on that chair, it'll bring up the same window as well. If I just go back to the employer booth, right at the top, you'll notice that there are some tags. So for each employer, there will be tags that essentially representing their specific industry sector. And what it is for students is when they go to the booths, they can choose but essentially which employer is most applicable to them, and they can click on multiple tabs, and it will basically bring up employers based on those industry sectors. If they want to select all, they can just go ahead and select all of them. So if I just click on any of these, it will essentially bring up all the employer booths from there as well. And if I reset the tags, it'll just show all the employer booths. So that is essentially...
Anthony, can I just ask, is that for all the Meet the Employers events, or just the day's events? Because I know you split it up, like engineering's on the on one day and IT on the other and so on.
Correct. So it'll be for
all employers.
That's correct. So for each applicable day, what we will do is we will reset all these booths, and we will set the tags accordingly, and students can filter through them. So the booths that you're seeing at the moment are only for the 28th of Feb, and we will reset it on each day. Yeah.
Yeah. So on engineering day, for instance, will you have tags at all? Because
yes,
they'll also,
yes, okay. Yes, we will do. Yeah.
Even though it's all engineering, or do you have different categories of engineering?
There will be different categories of engineering. So for hypothetically, if any employers are specifically targeting mechatronics students, or they're more specific to electronic engineering or mining,
okay, great.
We will place those tags accordingly. So it just makes it a little bit more specific. And you're 100% correct. I mean, engineering is a great one because there's so many subcategories. So there will be a few more.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. Great. Any more questions on the booths or tags before we move on? No? All right, great. So I'm just going to go back to the schedule again. On each applicable day, what we will do is we will obviously fill in the details of all the employers who are going to participate. For some, you will notice that there are there's not information in there at the moment. So in terms of next steps, the first call to action that I would like to appeal to all of you, considering that today is Thursday and we go live for the first day on Tuesday next week, and totally understand that it's a bit of a chaotic time for you going into peak season at the moment. But if I can just ask if you can all just, for those of you who haven't sent details through to Lily, if you can send those on, and we can essentially just propagate the platform so that we're ready for live date on Tuesday and for the respective dates. In terms of next steps, what to expect from the Grad Connection team is that for networking representatives who will be manning the booths on the day, and for speakers who will be doing the presentations, you will essentially be receiving an email which will look like the following. So for those of you who are going to be manning the booths, you will receive an email that looks like this from AirMeet, which will essentially tell you to set up your booth. There's absolutely nothing that you need to do in terms of setting up the booth. However, you do have the ability to go in and customize it based on content that you would prefer to showcase. But for the most part, it's a direct resemblance of your Grad Connection profile, and we've done all the work for you. So all you essentially need to do is just click on this link over here. which will essentially bring you through to directly into the reception of the platform. And you can go ahead, find your booth, jump into the booth, and essentially get ready for the day. For speakers, you will receive an email that looks like this. And this will basically be telling you which sessions that you're going to be presenting at, and you will get a unique link for that day. If we can ask for networking reps and for speakers not to share your links with any colleagues, if there's any other colleagues that you want to invite along to the day, feel free to just forward on the generic link, which we will send to you in the logistics email, which is to come. Reason being is because we have had instances where speakers have shared their link with colleagues. The colleagues have jumped in during a presentation and it kicks both of them out. And we've had to, just jump on stage and just try and,
30 or 230 meetings.
configure that while we go on. So if I can ask just not to share that link with any colleagues, and we can just create a link for them so that they have access to the platform on the day. But essentially, yeah, for booth representatives and for speakers, you'll receive your own unique emails, which you will receive in the next couple of days. We haven't sent those right now because we just don't want to make sure that gets lost in the cracks with everything that you're currently working on at the moment. So you will receive those in the next couple of days, most likely tomorrow or on Monday. And if you have any problems, please feel free to reach out to Lily or myself once you receive those, and we can troubleshoot hopefully before the day. So I'm just going to stop sharing screen real quick, and I'm just going to turn my camera on and just give any opportunities for any questions. I'm just going to quickly jump into the chat real quick and just go through any of these. So just give me a couple of seconds just to filter through these, if you don't mind. Right, okay, so I've addressed the question from Rachel regarding the login details. Is it per representative or per company? Each representative will get their own link. And yes, you can use the PDF option for sharing screen, or you can use the share screen function as well. For the mock interviews will be available throughout the whole day. So students have the ability to choose whether they want to go to the presentations, or they can sit in the booth and do mock interviews throughout the whole day. We have allocated a 15-minute time slot between each presentation to allow students to go into the booths and do mock interviews, but essentially that's available throughout the whole day. So if you have a representative who's going to be on booth, they can expect students throughout the whole day to come along and do that. There's also a question around bio, speakers, and headshots. If you haven't sent those on, you can go ahead and send those on to Lily, and we can set up your profiles for you. But if you haven't, you can go ahead and you can set that up on the day as well. Sorry, Linda, I see you've raised your hand. Have you got a question?
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Just with the mock interviews, are students registering for these? Can we see if we've got a couple waiting, or is it just when a slot's available, they might slip in?
Correct. It's just when a slot is available that they
okay.
can. I'm mindful that you will probably be a bit overwhelmed by the mock interviews, which is a great thing because it's essentially one of the reasons why we fine-tuned the events a little bit this year compared to last year, because it's a bit more of a call to action for them to jump in and participate in those mock interviews. So fingers crossed that they do, and I'm sure they will, because a lot of them are very eager to kind of get set up for just interviews in general and just get set up for future careers. So yeah. For speakers, do we have anything special to include with sound for content? So yeah, if you do have any videos that you want to share during your presentation, we have done that in the past. It works well. What I would recommend doing, however, is to forward the video onto the Grad Connection team, and we can actually upload that into the platform versus you streaming it. Because when it comes to streaming video, essentially you'll be streaming through another stream and it gets a little bit glitchy. So if you forward that onto the team, we can have that ready for you to play during your presentation. So forward that onto Lily as well with any content, and we can sort that out for you as well. Great. Any other questions? Rachel, I see you've raised your hand.
Hello, thank you. This is Rachel from Combank. I also have a question about the mock interview. If I recall correctly, when you're sharing the screen that there were 2 tables for mock interview, is that the case for every company, or can we limit it to just one and the other table just for, generic questions?
Yeah, we have created 2 tables purely because we're mindful that there's only 1 slot per table, and it only allows 1 student at a time. So it's essentially just to allow more than 1 student. If you do have representatives on the booth to do the mock interviews. If you don't, it's all good. You can just utilize the 1 table and the other one for the general info as well.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
No worries.
Sorry, Michelle here. Another one about the mock interviews. This is very exciting, by the way. Really cool option. Sorry, you talked about before with the students. Do they pop into our room for a mock interview, or are they actually pushed out and said there's a mock interview available at this organisation, and they actually go to that one?
That's a good question, Michelle. So it'll be both. So during presentation, students can go in ad hoc and to their own accord to go in and do mock interviews. But what we will do at the end of each presentation is we will encourage students after the presentation to go in that 15-minute slot and go and do the mock interviews before the next presentation starts. So I hope that answers your question there. I see Max has asked a question about how many participants are there currently. I'm assuming, Max, that you are talking specifically about the number of students who've registered. So as of today, we have slightly short of 2,500 registered students for the 5 days, which is pretty good. So we should probably expect at least half of those based on experience from last year. So we can expect at least anything from 200 to 300 students per day, I would say, which is the kind of benchmark that we're hoping to aim for. Mishri, I see that you've asked a question there. Go ahead.
I just had a question again around the mock interviews. I agree with the sentiment. Really exciting. It's good to see that we've brought this in from prior years, which is really great. Is there going to be a schedule, and apologies if you covered this off and I missed it, is there a schedule that's going out to the students or even for us just to see what mock interviews are running and the times, just so we also know, I guess, like where the students could be coming from, and which other companies are participating in the mock interview part of it, or part of the day as well?
Good question. So at current, there is no schedule for mock interviews for students. So it's very much on a first come, first serve basis for the booths, purely because of the limited time that we have between the presentations, and also because we also don't want to have a situation where students are going to mock interviews and not to presentations, because I think there's definitely value for them from both. But it's essentially to allow them to kind of choose their own journey within the platform and make it as engaging as possible. So they can go ahead and do mock interviews. If there's a presentation that they find is not adding any value, and hopefully that's not the case, but they can always go ahead and do the mock interviews after each presentation. And what we will do is the Grad Connection team will also be online. Lily and myself and the rest of the team will be online to see how the traffic is going to the booths for mock interviews. And we will use the alert system as well as the feed to navigate students to employers who may potentially not be getting students for mock interviews, and just keep guiding them that way. So we'll be navigating and guiding students throughout the platform each day. Yeah.
As employers, thank you for that. Is there a way that we can have sort of just access based on industry, which other companies are also doing the mock interviews as well?
So essentially, every employer will do mock interviews for each day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries. Lorinda, I see that you asked a question as well. Please go ahead.
Hi, yes, thanks. This is our first time ever getting involved in this virtual meeting, which is very exciting. I have a question on the short pitch presentations. Is the format the same as the speaker presentations, or is it more aligned with the samples that I viewed from last year's format?
That's a very good question. So there is a distinct difference between the 15-minute presentations and the quick pitch. The idea between, the distinguishing thing between the two is that the quick pitch will be very similar to a Shark Tank, Dragon's Den kind of 3-minute pitch, essentially where you will be pitching your grad programs or your organization to students. We try and make that a little bit more playful and off the cuff, where we will give you strict 3 minutes. Some employees have been cut off in the middle of presentation, but the idea is for you to kind of blast through it and really just showcase, you know, your value propositions to students. And it's almost like you're selling yourself to students, but essentially it's just to make it a little bit more unorthodox compared to, you know, normal presentation. Some employees, or most employees, don't share screen. They kind of, because there's not much time for those 3 minutes. And again, the Grad Connection team will be backstage, and they will bring each employer based on the schedule for the day. So they'll bring each employer up, bring them off stage, and bring the next employer on as well. But don't worry, we're backstage. We're there to help you navigate, and very mindful that for a lot of you, this is the first time that you're going to be doing this, and we'll be there to kind of navigate and help you through it.
Thank you. Can I then ask a question about the resource booth? Because you touched on that and showed the different chairs, and you could almost click on a chair. Can you just tell me how that works? Do I have everyone in the booth at the same time, or do I need to rotate people in and out?
It's up to you. So some employees rotate team members throughout the day onto the booth, but essentially whoever's available can click on an available chair, and they can sit and wait for students. It is a lot better than your traditional virtual careers face platforms that we have, where you just have essentially a chat box like you would have here in Zoom. And as soon as a student jumps on, their face will appear on screen, like you can see, we can see each other, and you can have a one-on-one conversation with them on the booth. A lot of employers, particularly now with it going to peak season, don't have team members available, you know, just to sit online the whole day. So they will rotate team members on a rotating basis and bring them online when they have capacity.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much.
No worries, you're welcome. All right, so I just want to make sure that I am covering all the questions here. It seems like it. Any other questions? Feel free to just turn on your mic, ask any questions that you have, but hopefully we've covered most of the questions over here.
Hey, Anthony. I just had a quick question, which I think is also posted in the chat already.
Yeah, no worries.
So do all the employers have to offer a mock interview slot? This is probably something I just need to confirm with the person who's organizing, because I'm not sure we've got enough people to have like manning those as well.
Sure. Well, it just depends. I mean, I guess the priority for most employers when it comes to the booths is to have someone available for the mock interviews versus just on the general info table. Because I think that's where the most value is. And essentially that's, you know, how we're promoting it to students as well, is come along, engage in a mock interview with an employer. We have employers online eager to meet you and, you know, help you navigate you through it. So I would say if you need to prioritize, I would say prioritize the mock interview table versus the general info table, because I think that's where you're going to get the most engagement from students.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Sure, no worries. Right, any other questions? Rachel,
Hi, Anthony.
Yep.
Yes, it's me again.
Right.
I have a question about the presentation slot. So you mentioned that if there's 2 people in the presentation, it will kick the both of them out. Is that correct?
So that was more pertaining to your unique link. So what will happen is that each speaker will receive an email from Grad Connection AirMeet, which will basically give you a unique link to your presentation slot. What I'd recommend is don't share that link with another colleague. If you are going to have 2 presenters, is just supply their details separately, and each of them will get a unique link, and they can both do a presentation at the same time. But if they use the same link, it will kick both of them out, because it's not. The system is basically it's a security safeguard to make sure that we don't have any unauthorized people coming in using the same link to do a presentation. Does that make sense to you, Rachel?
Yeah. Totally. Thank you so much.
Sure, no worries. Great. Any last questions?
Anthony, with the interview, the mock interviews, are we all asking our own different questions? Are we all asking the same question? I think it said that there was an interview guide provided. How are we going to get a copy of that?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of next steps, Lily will be sending out a logistics email just in terms of what to expect on the day, just some last system checks in case you haven't sent anything through. And one of those, Hayley, will be a generic mock interview set of questions. feel free to use those. If you have your own, that's all good, but we have supplied a set of mock interview questions that you can go through and ask students on the day. So it's a real great question, and it's actually something I forgot to bring up. So thanks for sharing that, but we will definitely share that as part of our last sort of systems check and logistics email to everybody.
No worries. Thanks, Anthony.
You're welcome. Great. Any last questions before we head off from here? No? Fantastic. Well, thank you all for your time. Mindful that you're all going into a super busy season. So again, thanks all so much for participating in Meet the Employers this year. We will be sharing this recording with everybody afterwards. So if there's any team members who haven't joined today, feel free to share it with them. And if you have any other questions, feel free to send Lily or myself an email. And we're super excited to have all of you online next week. Hope you have a great rest of the week and have a very successful peak season that's coming. So enjoy the rest of your day and talk to you all soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks so much, Anthony. Have a good one, mate.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.